Year of High Consequence, Day 8. Year of the Fire Horse, February 17th, Part 3. Let me try to sum it up and bring it to the practical if possible. We're in a global situation, not to call it crisis, but we're in a situation we need to confront, and people are freaking out about it. And there's a handful of different ways they're freaking out about it, and they're all accurate. AI might take over our culture in ways we don't understand, throw everybody out of work. The elites are running away with the wealth and leaving everybody behind in a situation where they no longer can pursue their dreams, and it's not a happy planet. And it goes to lockdown or chaos on the streets, while the elites either control a police state or are able to hide from the chaos. And then there's the ecology is breaking down, and everything seems to be in this just mulching natural ecologies, paving them over, and that seems like that's so we have a crisis of resources happening. The global warming thing, yeah, that's happening, kids. It really is. So, but even if we stop burning oil or whatever the hell it is, but whatever, things are changing and we're not adapting fast enough. Perhaps the storms are definitely getting crazier. There's been 50 years of analysis about that. I wouldn't be just throwing that out the way the right wing is doing. Okay, what else we got? We got politics that are not responding to people. The left versus the right are not working together, and people are starting to hate on each other. And at the same time, have less. There's a personal crisis everybody's going through, and how to. I'm saying, and now we have 3 years where Trump's going to be president, I guess, and then the midterms, and the Democrats are not offering anything any happier than what anything's. I'm not complaining about whatever the because I don't think I think the politics are doing an adjustment that I have no idea what they're really doing, but I know that the way it was going wasn't cool, and I stopped trusting the Democrats back in the '90s, and went with the Greens for a while, but they weren't being coherent either. They were fell into the far left approach. But the idea that we need to be responsible to the ecology, now why couldn't we build a real grassroots party around that? Yeah, some of the Republicans in New Mexico thought I had the right approach. They actually wrote a letter to the Green, uh, email thing and said, "We're glad you didn't follow Castro's route down a grassroots approach to this because you guys would have been a major force." And that's, I guess, what you call libertarian green. And now we need to be doing libertarian socialism, because if we just let that go to the elites and the masses, there's already that situation with Africa and India, and China's has this approach of going techno and automating everybody. Apparently, who knows what they're doing exactly, but it doesn't look that happy necessarily. And they've kind of overreached perhaps their industrial take over, whatever the hell they're doing. And the whole industrial approach makes slaves out of people. We're not facing the reality of this. Now, we do have like amazing technologies that we've arrived at, but to share them intelligently in a fractal way where you would have, like, let's say, a factory that takes care of whatever people really need in that community technologically, and then stops work, or just handles maintenance of that stuff. And it isn't trying to sell you a new one every day, and isn't trying to make as much possible profit as possible, but just more or less tries to take care, provide, not profit. Most of the intelligence, most of the really crazy computer shit, you don't need a million of them, man. Yeah, but the I'm getting all mean green on you. I need to try to stay Professor Yikes. It's still kind of the edge of the world, eh? All right. So there's all these different difficulties, and people are at the same time losing their minds. They don't know what they mean. What do they mean? And then you have these spirit schools coming on top of that in a complete disconnect. So people are calling the real world the Matrix, and they're saying the other real world, which is what we're feeling and seeing inside from the Buddhite. Well, I'm calling them Buddhite, but the motherships are out there, man. That's for real. But whatever, you can take that as a metaphor for the possibility of we're higher selves. We could get to a civilization that doesn't destroy itself. That's easily imaginable. But I don't see that happening if everybody's going to be locked into just getting more of this, more of that, all in their little apartments. And then you have, in other words, what's going on is the economy is no longer responding to people's needs. And you want to point fingers at people, CEOs of different companies that are making it inhuman as if they're the ones doing it. To get to be the top of that thing, they had to be good at this art of profiteering and then, getting your real money, whatever it is. So all of these ills. And I'm saying there's one generic approach that'll solve them all, which is coming back to community and doing it in an economic way and doing it in an actual connecting to resource way. And you do it by doing it. You don't doing it by voting for it. Although if you were going to vote for it, call it the Neighborhood Party Unlimited. But I mean, these are things you might get closer to with the right-wing approach. But you need the left-wing higher values. What you don't need is the left-wing turning it into nonprofits that take half the money and don't do the job they were lined up to do because they're not getting, I don't know what the problem is with that. There's a real disconnect with nonprofit organizations and then the idea of donation and the idea that you're creating the needs in the first place instead of, and then, and that's one of the things I'm pitching right up front. Let's do this year, donation people. Don't stop giving it to organizations that are just going to be locked in and have secretaries and they're passing out donation money. I'm not putting all that down if it's sincere, but a lot of it's been shown to be not efficient enough. Let's be kind. And I'm lining up some people in Africa who are trying to have money to buy some farmland to do permaculture and others that are already doing it but need some more projects. And now I'm saying to the industrialists, could you imagine a fractal version? I know that I was seeing this like decades ago, possibly the previous century even, where it was possible to do smaller versions of industrial things. In other words, like high-tech stuff, but not mass production, fine-tuned. Like the community needs 3 of these to do their traffic thing or whatever, and then people don't need a new iPhone every goddamn day. In fact, I think I use a different iPad for most of my what I'm talking to now is it's 8 by something, and I leave that at home, and then I have a phone. I'll go back to the flip phone. I ended up buying a smartphone. It's really annoying. I hate the energy coming out of it. I want to have a phone to talk to people every now and then, not to tell me all the bullshit. I can go home and check that all out. And in general, if we think we're going to keep this, because we're running into some crisis about all of this, and so maintaining the global economy, does maintaining the global economy mean also maintaining all of these ills that I just listed? And what I'm saying is, you're never going to legislate those away, but there's an organic way to get around all of that. There's an organic way to have a buffer between you and the surveillance state, and get to the place where the surveillance state is not your enemy anymore, but it's just kind of maintaining a friendly order between communities that respect the individuals enough to not have them fear the authorities. You have to start with not fearing the authorities in your own community. And the leaders of those communities get together and they go, yeah, we're just community leaders. Nobody's the freaking emperor of the freaking cosmos. Except for maybe Jehovah. And he's not an asshole. He's a sweetheart. Can't wait to have dinner with him again. Shut up. Well, you never know, man. What the hell? But I'm saying it's personal, it's human. Does that mean Sophia? I don't know. Do they incarnate? Can they? Do they want to? I don't know. What the hell? Is there an energy? Maybe. Listen, we got to take it on planet Earth, as that was metaphoric for the idea we're going to make this work. We're going to have heaven on Earth. Judgment Day means we're going to call out the bullshit. Now, that's kind of what's happening right now, but now people are mesmerized by the Abbey Files and the E. Kirky Warpies and all the other flirpy warpies doing things that make it look like evil's real. Like, yeah, evil is what happens when you stay stupid and you double down on it. It takes a while to snap out of that mesmerization. But it's another mesmerization to think that's doing it to the rest of us, as if that's what's causing it to not go right. No, What's causing it to not go right is that it takes a while to get it all happening on all the different levels where we can all participate properly and genuinely. And so thinking we're going back to tribes, that's gonna like just pretend none of this recent shit happened where we all think we can be rock stars. You don't think I'm a rock star already? And do I need your validation? So that's my point, and that's what Jimi Hendrix was trying to say. We're already rock stars. If we flow with the creativity of our inner selves and our collective joyous community connections to meaning, and includes the trees and and all that. But now how it used to be, we had a version of that was organic and not complicated. That was the tribal version. That's why some of my friends want to go back to that. And that's, I also agree, that's where we need to go back. But we need to go forward to that and have it apply to all these visiting civilizations with though hey, they got a lot of, they're looking to Earth to see how we can really balance all this crazy individuality. And we don't know how to do it yet, apparently, but we're on the verge of it because we've got aspects of it that are making sense, and we're having a lot of new breakout, like bring it back to community, get to your heart self. And a lot of it is now in the context of selling it to each other as it would be in the old paradigm. But we're starting to understand the new paradigm, that the real meaning is in reaching out and not having to overproduce. So you're getting that coming from another place entirely. The degrowthers are not about new age energies that could make us more enlightened. But you put the two of those together, and you have local bioregionally based ecological stuff, and there's parts of the economy that don't have to adapt to this. I'm not sure which, but whatever. I'm not, like it'd be fun to have connections to, in China with artists and other things going on, and whatever goes on that makes sense. But you get away from everybody having to frantically sell you things. I'd just as soon be giving my art away, but I know I can visit there and get some dinner and whatever. That's just a naive example. Same thing with music. Musicians used to be content with showing up and being part of the festivities. But and if things were brought back to community scale, you'd be solving all of those ills I was saying. The need for a surveillance state. The surveillance state can stop at the border of the community organization. It's how businesses right now choose to be on top of their employees for whatever their own personal reasons, but they wouldn't have to. They say we have a company where you're from the surveillance company. Well, but first of all, you wouldn't have a motivation to care if anybody was checking in on you, because everything's above board, and you're not trying to squirrel anything away, because that would be going against your community of sustenance. Now, in the old days, that meant your tribe. That meant you don't backstab your tribe, because that's their community of sustenance. Nowadays, we're getting food from where? We're getting energy from where? We're getting whatever we're getting from where? And that's our community of sustenance. To bring it back to where it's a wholesome relationship, and can you do that economically so it makes sense, and you're going to your job that involves providing and sustaining instead of profiteering. So we're not selling random as much as possible bullshit from wherever. Right now, China, half of it. And you're not needing to use production workers in a factory to make massive amounts of everything. But you may need people to take a couple hours out of their day to tend their permaculture farm. And you may need people taking a diverse approach to what their real employment would be. And then a company that honors that and pays it back in resources that are valuable and meaningful. And that's where your real money is. So you're solving the whole Bitcoin BS. Although we're in a period right now where we need anybody to invest in these alternatives till we get the land base back. And eventually we're talking to everybody. That's why I want to say anybody that thinks they're holding back good ideas because somebody's going to maybe stop them from the dark side. The dark side has to understand themselves to want to get back to making it wholesome for all of us, because that's where it sustains. Otherwise, it's diminishing returns. Yeah, it was a new concept. Conservation of complexity. Terence McKenna has some amazing things to say. he really bridges a lot of this. He goes all psychedelic on it. I want to say I understand and got all that, and you don't have to go all psychedelic on it. I understand psychedelics. I'm from the '60s, although I'm the tail end of that. But that's why I'm still a little bit kind of youngish right now to pass it on to everyone. It breaks out everywhere. The prophecy from the Buddha uh, Aquarius prophecy is full disclosure of all the information and access to it. It's not all intellectual. It's a lot of it is heartfelt, and beyond that, it's kind of weirdly aesthetic. And then it's experiential. And it ends up not being about concepts. It ends up being about dancing gracefully with the now, and that's what music's all about. But it's also what this personal sharing can be about, and how the whole future can be done if we do it right.